During the time of Rome, Alkali lay within a remote province far to the south and east, on the border of the Parthian Empire. Far from the influence of civilization and order, a posting at Alkali was considered by many to be tantamount to exile, a punishment reserved for criminals, outcasts, and the dishonored. It was also the domain of one of the most twisted officials in the entire Roman Empire, the depraved Governor Cassus Vicus. Once a tribune in Rome, Vicus was known throughout the empire for his love of hedonistic excess. He could be found in attendance at any extravagant party, feast, or orgy, and rumor had it that there were no perversion that he would not try at least once. His peers, however, did not always share his open-minded views, and when he was caught by surprise consuming human flesh, they agreed that he had finally gone too far. Vicus was condemned to death, but before his sentence could be carried out, the Emperor Tiberius, a personal friend of the tribune and a fellow reveler himself, interceded on his behalf. After the emperor's death, a short time later, his successor, Caligula, decided to appoint Vicus governor of Alkali. At first, it was suggested that this was a backhanded promotion, a way for Caligula to both recognize Tiberius's pardon and punish Vicus at the same time. Others, however, would later, and more accurately, assert that Caligula wanted Vicus as far away from Rome as possible so that he wouldn't compete with the emperor's own reputation for excess. Whatever the case, Vicus greatly resented his new appointment, until he realized just how liberating the position could truly be. Away from the eyes of Rome, Vicus was free to rule Alkali according to his own perverse whims. He soon became a cruel tyrant, earning the respect and fear of his neighbors throughout the region. The taxes his soldiers collected were used to fund his many monstrous appetites, and before long, the small frontier settlement of Alkali was transformed into a carnival of debauchery and gruesome spectacle. Meanwhile, back in Rome, a soldier named Tertius Longinus was also facing exile to Alkali, but, unlike Vicus, his crime was an act of virtue rather than one of perversion. A rising star in the Praetorian Guard, during the reign of Tiberius, Longinus's hopes for a life of honor and renown were dashed to pieces when Caligula rose to power. Under Caligula, he and the other guards were forced to take part in a wide range of atrocities, from the torture and execution of innocent civilians to bizarre orgies of sex and blood. On one such occasion, the emperor forced a senator's daughter to have intercourse with a group of men in addition to his favorite horse. Afterwards, the emperor claimed that the girl had not bled sufficiently enough, nor had she completely satisfied the horse. As punishment for this offense, he ordered Longinus to decapitate her, but Longinus refused. Outraged by his audacity, the emperor was ready to have Longinus killed as well, until the soldier's friend and protector Cassius Quaron stepped in and begged Caligula to spare his friend's life in exchange for exile to Alkali. Amused by the thought of what would lie in store for the honorable guard under Vicus's employ, the emperor agreed, and so Longinus was sent to Alkali, where he became a centurion in the 1st Legion, 7th Cohort, 3rd Maniple, 2nd Century. At Alkali, Longinus and his men were tasked primarily with protecting the borders of the province and escorting merchant caravans as they made their way to the city. Frequently, however, the guards would be forced to either raid the caravans themselves or charge a protection fee for their services, proceeds from which would be transferred directly to Vicus's coffers without going through the usual taxable channels. During one of these raids, Longinus's unit was almost completely wiped out when a band of 6 mysterious strangers, each possessing unique magical abilities, stepped forward to defend the caravan. The leader of this group, a witch named Mavash, ordered her comrades to destroy their attackers, but keep Longinus alive. When the fighting was over, she told him that she and her cohorts were members of an ancient Sumerian order that had been charged with the stewardship of a powerful entity known as the Firstborn. This entity, she said, had been sealed beneath the city of Alkali long ago in order to prevent its corruption from spreading across the world. Now, however, Vicus's wicked actions were causing that seal to weaken, and before long, the creature would be released. She and her companions had joined the caravan to travel to Alkali and prepare for this dire event, but they had also joined because it was foretold that doing so would lead them to the 7th and final member of their team, Longinus, the unknowing bearer of a supernatural 6th sense. Confronted with this revelation, Longinus was struck with a renewed sense of purpose and immediately agreed to join Mavash's group. Together, the 7 warriors continued on their journey to Alkali and prepared themselves for the coming of the Firstborn. Meanwhile, back in the provincial capital, things were getting rapidly out of hand. The absolute power and unrelenting pleasure of his position was going straight to Vicus's head, to the point where he was beginning to see himself as a living god. It was at this time, when Vicus was ordering temples to be erected in his honor, that the Firstborn came to him, calling to him in his dreams and offering him power beyond his wildest imagination. Confused by the visions he was receiving, Vicus had a clairvoyant slave named Cassandra attempt to make contact with the entity in his dreams, whom he believed to be the god Jupiter in child form. Cassandra did as she was commanded and, after returning from her psychic journey, told the governor that the entity had given her instructions for a ritual that would open the doors to a paradise of endless parties. Understanding this as a call to join the gods in Elysium, Vicus agreed to perform the ritual, and soon enough, the Firstborn was free again. While the entity busied itself with the screaming citizens of Alkali, Longinus and the others disguised as guards in Vicus's court snuck past the Firstborn and into the Pyxis. Upon entering the breach, they found themselves flung 3,000 years into the past, to the lost temple of Alkali and the original opening of the rift. There they battled the demonic servants of Erexigal and resurrected onto Darunu, who told them that he would need their power to help him reseal the breach. Unfortunately, the Firstborn's release had tainted the land around the modern-day Alkali. So, in order to completely contain it, he would have to pull the Alkali of 38 AD into the Pyxis as well, adding another layer to the box and trapping the 7 mystics there for all time. Seeing no other alternative, the 7 companions agreed. The ritual was performed, and the Firstborn was sealed once again. It was not until much later, however, that the 7 came to truly understand the nature of their sacrifice. Trapped forever inside the Pyxis, they faced a losing battle against the many minions of the Firstborn, including Vicus. When they could no longer resist their enemies' assaults, the 7 warriors were captured and taken to see the governor, who had been transformed by the power of the Firstborn into a bloated cannibal fiend. There, they were tortured for Vicus's amusement, and later were forced to watch in horror as he devoured Mavash alive. Somehow, the witch managed to survive this process, living on inside of Vicus long enough to transfer her energy to him, and turn him into the key to the Sumerian layer of the box. This transference brought an end to her existence through the dissipation of her life force. But her companions would not be afforded so easy an escape. Because of the ephemeral nature of death inside the Pyxis, they could be killed over and over again, and their bodies would be restored every time, providing Vicus with an unlimited source of entertainment. Such has been the fate of Tertius Longinus, who, for the past 2,000 years, has hung crucified on the outskirts of Vicus's domain, living and dying in an endless cycle of pain and suffering. Each time he is killed, his heart turns into a mass of flies, which then swarms into his mouth and resuscitates him. Thus he has remained, a grim reminder of the torments that await those who would dare to cross the Firstborn. Following the disappearance of the provincial capital, Al-Kali was taken by the Persians, who held the territory for the next 1,200 years. When it was finally taken from them, it was at the hands of the servants of the Firstborn, and in the name of holy war. If you're resigned to your fate, time to subscribe to your fears.
Come and play with us forever.